government. Ash, we were speaking earlier together on this programme, and you were telling us that you have colleagues on the ground as part of this evacuation effort. Have you managed to speak to anyone or get any more information following this attack outside the airport?
No, not in terms of the British chain of command. They're clearly going to be very busy as we speak, trying to make sure that they can secure the area post the incident and make sure they can account for all their people. So the last thing they or anybody else on the ground needs is people from far away trying to find out and ask them what's been going on. We have heard, however, reports from Afghan friends who know people who were there or close to that site as they've been trying to get their papers authorised, as it were, to be able to evacuate. And one such case, very lucky that he stepped away with a couple of his friends to make a phone call or send a text message, and the blast, according to him, happened just where he'd been standing. So, it's absolutely tragic, a heinous, cowardly act, but something that Kabul has seen, sadly, all too regularly over the last 20 years.
And some sad news too, that there are now 13 reports of 13 casualties, including children, and some US service personnel have been injured.
Yeah, I mean, it's every life lost or anybody injured, it's every single one is devastating. These people are desperate enough as it is, and if the situation, could it get any worse? And it just has. The tragedy of this is that, of course, the very units in the police and the Ministry of Interior, where I often advised and worked, are the very people who are now most vulnerable from Taliban reprisals. So, of course, that capability that would now be ensuring the safety of the civilians and residents of Kabul just does not exist anymore. It's awful.
And of course, the evacuation effort seems to be continuing. Earlier, we were running live pictures from the airport. Flights were still taking off. The Prime Minister said time was running out, but British, NATO, American troops doing their best in now an extremely difficult and dangerous situation.
Yeah, it's clearly getting much more difficult by the hour, as evidenced by today's most recent attack. But it's a very large airfield, so if flights are still able to leave, I'm sure all those nations, including the US and the UK, if they can get flights out, they will be trying to continue to keep those going, because there clearly are many vulnerable people who we are seeking to evacuate, and we'll want to try and get them out if we can.
Some analysis, perhaps, that this evacuation effort might need to be curtailed, shortened, to get troops out just in case more attacks happen. Would you think that might be a possibility?
I mean, it's clearly a possibility, but I don't think it's helpful for any of us to speculate on the plans of those on the ground who are best placed to know what they need to do to get both the civilians and their own forces out safely. But it may just be worth mentioning that this kind of complex attack is the very attack that, ironically, the Haqqani network used to mount regularly, routinely in Kabul, with an initial suicide bomb of some variety, vehicle or man sort of born, as it were, followed up by shooters on the ground, ground forces with small arms. So what we tried to help the Afghans do was put in place a policy and plan that they could respond to multiple attacks. So I think what they will need to be doing now is being extremely vigilant that there aren't follow-on attacks that the Haqqani, the ISIS-K group might be seeking to mount in other parts of the airfield. They'll have to be very, very careful.
Tense times indeed. Ash Alexander, thanks very much indeed for joining us on Sky News. You're watching Sky News. There's been an explosion outside the area of the Kabul International Airport.